Okay. Yesterday we had an Akdoma to Perek Vav. Today we'll go into the Mishnayos here. Maybe you will do this. Okay, he has a shorter Akdama, so we'll go over to this, his way of saying the shorter Akdama, and we'll go into the entire thing. The obligation of the mitzvahs that have to do with the land, only takes effect on Klal Yisrael, that's if they went and captured and sanctified it. Very good. At the outset, the way they became sanctified was when they came up from Mitzrayim. When they captured it during the days of Yeshua, the Kedusha Zonikos Kedusha Rishayim. Throughout Chazal, this is called the Kedusha Rishayim, first sanctification. In Kedusha Zukeyamis Lo'ilam, there is a question in Chazal, Gemara and Megillah, whether at the end of the day this is nullified or it's Kedusha Shaitel, Kedusha Lovi as well. At the end of the day, the Mishnah that we're going to be dealing with here, Mishnah Aleph, was only temporary until they were exiled. When they returned back from the diaspora during the days of Ezra, and they took over a second time Eretz Yisrael. If you don't hold it's only Kedusha L'Shaita, only those areas that they actually took over do we say become sanctified. That's what Vizuhi Kedusha Shniya. That's called the second sanctification. They did not take over the entire span that the Olam Mitzrayim had. Only a certain portion. There is a disagreement even on the second one. In Batel Achashachar Habayis, after the second Churban, V'Gol Yisrael, and Klal Yisrael was exiled, Oishi Kayemis L'Oila, whether it's a permanent Kedusha, Hatashim Sasenu Soiv Kedusha Shniya Le'Batel. Our Mishnah is going to hold, even though the first Kedusha was not La'os Lovi, it's not in permanency, but the second one is V'Kachi Aloch. That's how we pass on Aloch. That the second Kedusha is permanent. Since as I mentioned, I described the map, and there's only a certain portion, a much smaller portion, that was Oilei Bavel, that there's a distinction on the halachas of Shvius between these areas. That was Niskadoshu al Yidei Oile Bavel, Shekidusha some Gemura. That's a kedusha that's complete minat Torah because we hold it's permanent. Lebein HaMekoyim, it's not true al Yidei Oil Mitzrayim Bilvad that there's no permanency, and since they never took it over, technically minat Torah we consider it like chutz la'aretz, like out of Israel. Lebein HaMekoyim it's not true klal. And then there's a third madrega, which we call something that never was this kaddish bead from kedusha rishayna, kedusha shniya, and it never was taken over. And I mentioned that even though it was promised, that's only lost of love by the bris ben absarim of Avram Avinu, who was promised. But prior to that, afterwards, it did not come to fruition. So that's also considered bisman hazeh until Mashiach comes chutz la'aretz.
Maybe because we didn't settle there?
We never settled it. We didn't settle it ever. Even bisman Yeshua. The biyim ishtazu v'hagvulus and the skarim b'robu ha'perusha. V'onu novi shnayim ikrim mitoichem. There are a lot of Mefarshim on this Mishnah, but he's going to go through two different explanations. One is from the Rash and the Rosh. And the second one from the Ram and the Lagoy. So he's going to go ahead and give us, even though you could learn this maybe 3-4 off the top of my head, but we're not going to go into every single one. But we have to know that there are 3 madregas, and that's what our mission is going to deal with, because we're right at the beginning of Perek Vav and Masechta Shvius. Zok the Mishnah, Sholish Harotzis LaShvius. There are 3 different provinces for Shvius. Anything which was taken over when the people from Babel came, Eretz Yisrael va'ad Kiziv, from Eretz Yisrael until Kiziv. So let's see over here how he says over here. Any part, you see Kiziv is in the middle over here. If you see the maps, this is province number 1. Now, you have to understand what this means exactly. Eretz Yisrael, what does it mean, Eretz Yisrael? So he explains now, if you look at the map for Oil Bavel, I said it's in the dotted lines. So technically, even though Eretz Yisrael, B'zman Yeshua, went much more north, this was more like center Israel. If you think about it, it's not that far. It's due west of Jerusalem to a certain extent. What we would say in today's modern Israel. So he says over here for vis-a-vis the halachis of Oilei Bavel, Ha'ir Kiziv ha'yisabitzof in Eretz Yisrael. The Ir Kiziv was on the northern part of Israel, Noitla Litzad Mizrach, going towards the eastern part. If you look at the Aleph of where Kiziv is, you see on the right hand side, that's the eastern portion. Over here, we're talking about the boundary of Oile Bavel, the northern side. From the beginning of the southern side, meaning on the southern portion of Eretz Yisrael, it wasn't that much different Oile Bavel from Oile Yeshua, of Yeshua. It wasn't the same. It wasn't that much different. The northern part was where it was cut out. There's a very small portion here. From Kziv going northward, we don't have anything. At the end of the day, we say that it went a little bit higher up until Aku. It was a very narrow part until Kziv. This is the most northern part, what we're talking about. Since it was a certain small part, we didn't count that extra portion that went up until Aku. You see Aku here?
Yeah, right below Kaziv.
What?
Right below Kaziv.
Right, Kaziv, right.
That little thing that sticks out?
So from Aku to Kaziv was a narrow area, so we don't really count it, but the main part and where it has it spread out was by the part of Aku. Is the halacha on this area of the map, loy nechal v'loy nevad. Meaning, you don't eat from it. What does mean you don't eat from it? We already said this is man beer. There's a time where you can't eat unless you go ahead and declare different machlokes we had, what exactly it means. The beer, does you have to be mafkir just for all of for everybody, or is it only for the aniyah? So he says here, "Kedushin iskacha arts hayidei oil bavim kayemis la'olim." According to the shita of our Mishnah, it's forever. V'loy batla b'churban habayis. Just because the second base of Mikdash was destroyed, it did not become nullified. It's obligated in all halachas of shvius, and on account of that, asur b'avodas hadom, you can't work on the land. And any of the produce that grows there cannot be eaten after the time of beer, which we already explained. Imloi kimu behemetzis beer, unless you did the proper process, which we've explained in the past, of being mavayir. It doesn't mean actually destroying it. It means that you're mafkir it, whichever way you understand. Now, we have to know that. Okay. So what he learns like nechel nevad, according to this pirush, it's the Rav and the Rash. It means that by nechel, you don't need it after this ma'abir. By nevad, you don't work on the land. Pirush acha, a pirush in necholim in godlu mikoyach avodas hasuris b'shvis. Now he learns the second shot, that let's say you went and you worked on the piece of property, which wasn't allowed, and then it brought out produce. So you can't eat from that because you worked on the field be'issa. This is the Pirush Ram Madur Kama. Rei le'el agdama close to Masechta be'inish Shama v'nevad. We already explained that. That's the second shot. Now another shot, Pirush Noisif. Loi nechol l'syachis l'seficha. Eating over here has to do with the wild growth. Because even if you don't work on the land, sometimes there's sfichim, there's wild growths. The question is, can you eat the wild growths? And the halacha is that they didn't allow sfichim. Regular growths, they allow, but not wild growths. Why? Any wild growth we didn't allow you to eat because there was a gezerah that the Chachamim created on account of those that will try to basically fake it out and eat things that they actually did grow and cultivate. Because what's going to happen over here is they're going to go say, no, it looks like that it was cultivated, but it wasn't cultivated. What happened over here is that it grew wild. These type of wild things. This halacha, that sfichim, wild growths, it's not the regular item on the piece of property, but it's a wild growth. Chacham went ahead and said you can't partake in it. Because they felt that you'll try to do something wrong and say that this was not cultivated and therefore it's allowed to be used for commercial purposes. This is how the Rambam explains it in another Madura. Okay. So basically what we're saying now about Oilim Bavel is that this is the most severe of the three provinces. And we say that across the board, as we consider it a din deraisa, and since it's a din deraisa, we give it the biggest chumras. Now we come to the second one, Oilim Mitzrayim, when Yeshua went in. B'chol shechzika Oilim Mitzrayim, which is going northward from Mekiziv, which is the southern part. Va'ad Hanor, until the Nor, which we already explained, is the Nahaparas. Va'ad Amona, until Amona, the area of Amona. You can see it here with the arrow. Amona. These are Oil Mitzrayim, and it's not part and parcel of Oile Bovel. Nechel, you can eat. Avuloi never. We only give it one chum. Nechel meaning, what does it mean, nechel? You can eat any shvius. Well, we already explained that normally you can only eat until there's nothing there left for the chayis hasod. Go do beer. Over here, nechel. You can continue eating since it's not kedusha. Kedusha side of the bubbles, kedusha rishayna, which is not kitchen loss and lova. Let's see how he explains it. Those areas that when Yeshua went in was a much greater breadth of Eretz Yisrael from north to south. If you look at the end of the Sefer Bamidbar, it gives you the complete geography. Any Kedushim in HaTorah is now not sanctified min HaTorah. Why? Since it was only temporary while they inhabited it at that time, and it became nullified. Once the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, so right now, technically, there's no din of Shvius min HaTorah because it's not min HaTorah considered actual Eretz Yisrael. Only the Rabbanim were Goyza, and since it was a Gezerah Rabbanim, they didn't do it in its entirety, that it has all the halachas of Shvius, only a partial Gezerah. Now, he describes what the geography is over here. Mikiziv v'ad hanoah v'ad amon. Kamel el. Hoysi kiziv b'tzofen Eretz Yisrael. That Kiziv was the actual northern part of Eretz Yisrael for the Oilei Bavel. Noitel tzad mizruch, and then it went east. That this is the Nahar Paras, which was on the northeast corner of Eretz Yisrael. Nahar Paras. Some say it goes Nahar Paras. That's one opinion. All the way up north over there. V'yesh mefarshim, that no, it's not Nahar Paras, which is most mefarshim, but Shehu Nahar Parfer, or Nahar Feger, Asamach Damesik. It's not so far north, it's only close to Damesik, to Damascus. V'ilu Amonu Hu Harahar. When we talk about Amona, which was the northwest corner of Oilei Mitzrayim, which was near the Mediterranean Sea, let's call it, all the way Harahar. This is not the Harahar where Aaron was interned. This is the Harahar of Eretz Yisrael. As it's brought down in Chazal, there were two Harahars. Right, Reb Shabbos? Yeah.
It gets confusing when people hear
it. So he says, Hu Harahar Haniske Parshas Maseh, when we talk about the geography. In the geography, we're talking Gvul Atzofim Arabi Shal Aretz. He says, it's the northwest corner of Israel. However, the northern part of the Oilei Bavel, which was a much smaller patch of land than regular Eretz Yisrael, Hu Aku. We mentioned before that that's really Aku. Ksiv was only a small strip.
Yeah.
Even though it's a very, very small strip, that's why he says Til Kziv. What do we teach us here? Any part from be it the eastern portion of this strip from Kziv until the Noah Paras, or west of it from Kziv till Amona, the larger area was only captured by Oilei Mitzrayim, not by Oilei Bavel, and that's not what in the equation over here. And therefore, Nechel Avoloi Nevat. You're not allowed to work on the land. Basically, it's a Gezeirah. And we say that you're not, it's us in these areas of Oilei Mitzrayim to work on the land. Even though this you can eat. When we say eat, we mean you can eat it without having to do beer. Yesh when we talk about work, we're not talking about all work on the land, because we already had, if you recall, there's fertilizing and there's all different types of items that you can do on the land. What are we talking over here? Let's say work that we did, we mentioned previously, that has to do with how would you say it? Tolish. It's not attached to the ground anymore. What is that? The avoidance that you do after you cut the tfur. Like we can have in Surya, which we didn't talk about yet. It's all type of work. Because what does it mean? Zriya, zerei, not zrei, winnowing. Winnowing, you're not allowed to do during Bisman, even for commercial purposes. If you have to winnow for your own reasonings we had before, it's okay. But you can't do it in large quantities because it looks for commercial. So there's a question, is it only on the things they actually do on the land? That's to do with the karka, or even afterwards, making it into bundles. All these things. So since it's detached from the ground, there are those that say it's not us. Continue in Shem tomorrow, Vaita, to understand what we do from Nahar Tamana Ulefnim, which is the third of the provinces. Chanani Mekhatim goes Rosh Hashanah Yisrael Fikri Mitzvah Shinam Adonai Chovek Simchatzitko Yavim Torah V'Yadir.